Okay, so in this video we're going to be doing a walkthrough of these first few steps in the Activity Geometry Sketchpad Discovering Trigonometry Investigation. So the first few steps here tell you how to set up a right angle triangle here, ABC, and how to measure its angles and its sides. So first thing you do is start a new sketch on Geometry Sketchpad, and I'll quickly remind you guys how to do a triangle here. So we're going to create a line which we're going to call AB, and we can label those points A and B by selecting those and hitting display. We're going to show those labels, A and B. Okay. Then what I want to do is I want to create a perpendicular line here at point B so that we have a nice right angle triangle. So I select the line AB, I select the point B, and I go up to Construct, Perpendicular Line. Now I've got a nice right angle between at the corner B. So next I want to put my point C somewhere on this line. So I'll choose just any point here and I'll call that one C. Okay. And now I don't really want this line to continue on forever, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect A to C and C to B, and then I'm going to highlight just the perpendicular line here that continues on forever, and I'm going to hide it. So hide that perpendicular line. Okay, so now I have my triangle ABC, and I've got a right angle here, so this is a right triangle. Next, what you're supposed to do is measure the angles. So remember that when we're measuring the angles in a triangle, the order that we click the points matters. So BAC, and measure that angle. It's going to give me the angle BAC is 26.88 degrees. If I want to measure the angle up here at C, I click A, then C, then B, measure that angle, and last I want to measure angle B, and if we did everything right here, that should come out at 90 degrees. So I'll measure that angle, and it comes out at 90 degrees. So that's good. Okay. I also have to measure each of the side lengths here by clicking the points, connecting a side, and measure its distance. So AC is 17.09 centimeters, CB is 7.73 centimeters, BA is 15.24 centimeters. Okay. So that gets you about to this point here. Now what we're supposed to do is label the hypotenuse, the opposite, and the adjacent sides. All of those are going to be relative to the angle here, A. So what I like to do here, since I'm going to be dealing with angle A, I like to use my marker tool, and if you drag that along the corner, it'll give you a little icon here in the corner indicating that that's the angle that we're going to be talking about here. We're going to be talking about angle A, so then we're going to be labeling the opposite and the adjacent side relative to A. So I can click on my text tool here to label the hypotenuse. And that is the longest side and opposite the right angle. Then I'm going to label the opposite side. Opposite side is going to be on the opposite side of angle A. And last, we've got the adjacent side, which is the leg of the triangle that's connected to angle A. Okay, so now I've got my triangle fully labeled. I've got the angles, I've got the side lengths, and now let's see what's next. Next up, we're going to be calculating the ratio between the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So that's BC over AC. So remember that to put a calculation here on Geometry Sketchpad, we go up to the number menu, calculate, and we want the opposite over the hypotenuse. So we want CB divided by the hypotenuse, which is AC, and we're going to get that one right here. Then we're going to do the adjacent over the hypotenuse if you're following along with the activity. So that's AB over AC. So number, calculate, AB divided by AC, the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And we get this one, 0.89. Okay, next we've got the opposite over the adjacent. So that's CB divided by AB. Okay, and that's 0.51. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second, and I'm going to just put a couple more labels here on my diagram, and then I'll point out a few more things about this activity. Okay, so what I did here was I just added some labels and cleaned up my my work a little bit. So I've got the angles that I measured here, the side lengths I've now labeled as hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. I've also put over here the trigonometry ratios. So we've got sine, cosine, and tan, which we're going to be getting into by the end of this activity. Sine, or the sine of an angle, is a function on your calculator, which is basically giving you the ratio of the length of the opposite side over the length of the hypotenuse. So we're taking the length of CB and we're dividing it by the length of AC. So we already did that. CB over AC is 0.45. And the cosine of the angle A, so if we hit cos of angle A, what we're asking our calculator for is the ratio of the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So that's AB over AC, which in this case is 0.89. And last, we have a ratio called the tan. So the tan of angle A is the opposite over the adjacent, or CB over BA, which in this case is 0.51. So you're going to have to memorize these three equations. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan is opposite over adjacent. The mnemonic that we use for that is so, ka, toa. And so sine, opposite over hypotenuse, cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, tan is the opposite over the adjacent. And so spend a little bit of time making sure that you commit that to memory. For the rest of the activity, you guys are supposed to be clicking on these points and dragging them around to see how that changes the side lengths, the angles, and the trig ratios. So I'll just grab C here and drag it around a little bit. If you notice, that's changing all of the side lengths except for the adjacent. That's changing the angle at A and the angle at C, but not the angle at B, because the angle at B is always going to be 90 if this is a right triangle. What else is it changing? It's changing all three of the trig ratios. Okay, if you look up here, dragging C changes all three of the trig ratios. Okay, so I'll let you guys play around with dragging those three corners to look at how it changes all of the angles and side lengths and ratios as you work through the activity. There's just a couple more things that I want to point out here before I leave you alone and let you get back to the activity. Number 14 says that you need to be making sure that your calculator is in the degrees mode. Okay, so on your calculator that you've got in front of you that you're using for this course, usually it's set to either degrees, DEG, or radians, RAD. You need to make sure that it's set to degrees, okay, for the rest of this unit. Radians you'll deal with in grade 11, but you won't have to worry about radians for this course. Lastly, for number 15, we're going to introduce the calculations of sine, cos, and tan. So over on our geometer sketchpad, I'm just going to do the first one for you. If you go up to number and calculate, okay, now sine, cos, and tan are functions. So we're going to figure out the sine of angle A. So that's this angle over here, BAC. So the sine of angle A, and we're going to hit OK. And I'm going to drag that just to show you here, guys, that the sine of angle A, if I punch into my calculator, sine angle A, or sine of 25.39 degrees, I get 0.43, which is the same value as if I divide the length of my opposite side by my hypotenuse side. So you guys can use the same functions under the calculator section of Geometry Sketchpad to figure out the cosine of angle A and the tan of angle A and see if that matches up with our ratios that we calculated here. Okay, so I hope that video helped, and good luck with the rest of the activity.